So yeah, I'm Hannah May. I'm from the Trussell Trust, and I will be taking you through a whistle-stop tour of my three favourite things at the moment, which is segmenting, reimagining, and reactivating. So yeah, just in case, what does it do? Just in case you don't know who we are the Trussell Trust. We're a national charity across the UK, supporting over 1,200 local food bank centres, which equates to 476 food bank distribution hubs, which are individual charities by themselves. We've been going since 1997, which surprises a lot of people, but we opened our first food bank here in Salisbury in the year 2000. And last year we gave out 1.9 million 3-day emergency food parcels, of which 56% of those went to children. So it's quite a big issue for us at the moment. We also, it's disappearing on the slide for some reason, but we know that our forecast says that we're going to be giving out 6 emergency food parcels every minute across the UK over winter, and the rise in food bank use since COVID has just been astronomical. Some places it's 700% increase on their usual month-on-month. So we thought we couldn't get any busier, but turns out we can. And we've been lobbying Parliament for the last 8 years internally, but we have never publicly campaigned. That's some weird noises coming. We started public campaigning 2 years ago, and right off the bat we started with what was then campaigning and now Impact Stack, because we wanted to build up the biggest audience we possibly could. We had over 40,000 individual donors, but we didn't know anything about them and didn't have permissions and all that sort of stuff, so we wanted to build up numbers pretty quickly. So our first campaign you might have heard of is the hashtag 5 weeks too long, which is about the 5-week wait that's built into universal credit. We started with the hand raiser function, so that was a petition action on Impact Stack, and yeah, we've hit the 25,000 people now, so ignore that. And that was a really good way of us getting numbers and contacts really quickly, and building up like a really big number of people to get behind campaigning, as it was obviously a very new thing for us and for anybody that was supporting us to understand that we do campaign. And then from there we kind of experimented with just how far we could push people in what we asked them to do. So basic petition actions, email your MP with a pre-written message, asking them to personalize it, and also doing like direct tweet to MP actions, and specific targets that they might not have ever heard of as well, like Robert Yenrick, which most people don't know who he is, but it actually worked out pretty well. But apart from the personalization, we didn't really know much about these people, and it wasn't really giving us anything to build a supporter journey on. So over the 2 years we've done a lot of online and offline campaigning. I have no idea what this box is, I'm so sorry. Yeah, the best thing that we could do with our audience that we built up was we got a scoop on the DWP's Metro ad that they put out. So we had like 8 hours to do a counteraction on the day that it dropped, which is this university. And we could put our supporters behind the weight of that, and also get them to put in lots of complaints to the Advertising Standards Agency, which found the DWP to be at fault and fined them for misadvertising in the Metro, which was fun. And so what we did know about these people after 2 years of offline and online actions is obviously that we only had 12 1,000 of them actively engaged out of the 22.5 that had taken action. So like they'd carried on after doing the first hand raiser. And we know the percentage of our audiences that are volunteers or have used a food bank, and that was quite a low percentage. And I think that was because of the way we were targeting them. It wasn't easy for them, or a safe space for them to identify that way. So we didn't really know much about them, and we obviously clearly after COVID realised that this is a problem. And so one of the first solutions for it was segmenting. We didn't know first off when we set up about more of the auto segmentation that you can do via Impact Stack to your mail service. So we fixed that because I was doing it manually, which I don't recommend. It's fraught with human error and time consuming, and Jess has been on the end of many conversations with me where I've been stressed about it. And so with your marketing service, we've got MailChimp at the moment, but you might have Marketing Cloud for Salesforce or whatever. As long as you find out what you want from the data, you need to know that quite early on. And obviously link here in your audience fields and your merge tags and make sure that the language is exactly the same so that you can find out, and then you'll be able to break down your communications much better with the specific information. So we've obviously got party, constituency, region, city, and then also specific to us data like whether they have said that they're a volunteer or have used a food bank, so that we can segment the audience that way as well. And then reimagining, which is one of my favorite things. This is a really key part of the process. Like we can't reactivate cold contacts or get new contacts if we hadn't done this. And so we've done massive surveys both on YouGov and internal supporter surveys, and this is where like your organization needs to decide who your target audience is by and what you want out of it and what you want the data to show you at the end of the day, because we had a lot of data in the 2 years but didn't really know what we were doing with it. The YouGov survey was 10,000 random people, which turned out to be quite representative of the UK, so we could do regional deep dive data, which is fun. Yeah, we also did an internal survey of all of the 40,000 individual givers, and we did that in 2019, and we did it recently in March as well, just to see if there was any shifts because of COVID, because we had a huge influx of new financial supporters, but that didn't actually change too much. And then this means that we could create tribes, which the next slide will tell you a bit more about, of the types of people and the types of relationships we could have. And I would recommend doing the Impact Stacks internal supporter journey training, because that's really what made the Trussell Trust change its whole way of working. We have not got a fundraising department anymore, or a campaigning department anymore, or a comms department anymore. We now have an audience and insight department who focus solely on how we talk to different audiences, so our network of food banks, public and government, and we split it off into events, volunteering, campaigning, and kind of combined all of our voice together. So it's a really big decision, so I don't necessarily recommend that everybody do that, but it's just an important way of thinking about your audience and how you can use this platform to rework some of your cold clients. So our YouGov surveys, 2019, we had we split them off. So 21% were hunger deniers, people absolutely think that this is not a problem, and the disengaged, who don't know us and don't really care. which was 8%. Thankfully, we don't have any of those when we did our internal survey in our supporter list, because that would be worrying. Sympathetic, but passive, we have put that is about the same percentage as early explorers in our internal survey. That's what we call them, people who have literally just heard of us and understand that there is a problem with poverty. Engaged and alarmed is 12% of the YouGov 10,000 people. We call those good Samaritans. These are the people that may volunteer for us in the food banks and donate food, but they're not politically active. Engaged but busy, we call them the busy urbanites internally. We've got less of those than the YouGov general percentage, and these are people who will donate or do one-off donations or potentially be regular givers, and they care about the problem and they like to hear about it, but they're not really politically active. And then 27% of the YouGov survey was called potential activists, which we have split into two different groups based on behaviour internally, and they're social justice warriors, which are people who do all of our actions. They're very engaged with that, but not necessarily financial supporters, because they're potentially people with lived experience and they're currently going through the situation. And then the super doers, who basically do everything that we ask them to do, and they donate and they'll run marathons for us and bake cakes and stuff. So they're the really like top echelon of, like, they're the easy people to send things to. And this was really, really important for us, because then we could work out what we need to do with the data we're getting from Impact Stack to talk to these people on their level and segment our audience properly. So in the reimagining our tribes, which I've just mentioned, with the internal survey, we asked the same things as YouGov, so about like government, about poverty, what they feel about food banks and all stuff like that. But important to us, which I think if you're going to do internal surveys, they're actually really easy to. We only got 10% of people responding to it, so that's about 4,500 out of people. But it's more about their relationship with you. Like, we're thinking of it as being more like a relationship, not in trying to be culty about it, but it's about how they've interacted with us previously, the actions that they've taken, the actions that they're prepared to take. Got the opportunity to ask more in-depth campaigner questions this time. So we'd ask if they would do a march or a petition, or go see an MP, or do some sort of physical activity. And then from that, we created profiles for each of our different tribes. So this is, you don't have to read it, but this is Sarah, our social justice warrior, who is one of our key contacts to do our campaigning with. And we've given her an image, and we kind of thought about these people and decided the sort of person they could be. It's not obviously prescriptive of everybody in those lists, but just the mode of that tribe, and the ways that we can cross-sell them, stewardship of those people, and yeah, they're all of our other people, and that really helps us in terms of deciding the language and the supporter journeys and the automated supporter journeys that we do with these people. And they might cross over in their lifetime between different tribes, but people tend to usually stay in them for a couple of years, up to 10 years, especially with the busy urbanites, because then they might become empty nesters, which makes them a super doer or a social justice warrior, for instance. So that's exciting stuff. So reactivation is the really, really important thing that we've been working on during COVID, because we didn't really want to get new people until we understood the people that we had in terms of campaigning. We were getting a ridiculous amount of funders, which we knew nothing about already. We were earning our annual salary every month since COVID, our annual fundraising target. So we needed to know quite quickly about these people. And so on the platform, we have done a couple of COVID emergency income support things with other charities, and with those we have segmented by different nation to start off with, which is easy to do on Impact Stack. You can put markups when you're doing in the form, and for this one, obviously we've kind of pushed out anybody who is not in England, but we then push them onto something else that they can do, that we want them to do, and engage them in a different way, which is good. It's a one-stop shop. We always put it at the top so that they don't have to read anything else and get disappointed by filling in a form that they're not eligible for. We have also started doing, for some reason it's not, exemptions in and exclusions in specific messages. So this can segment your audience, either if you want a specific constituency to do something different, or you want them to send something different to a specific target, like this time it was Boris or the Chancellor. You can like really tailor it down to both your target and your audience internally on Impact Stack, which is great. And really, really easy. Like it takes minutes on the platform, which is fun. But also one of the things that is really, really great, especially with the templates that you already have preset on Impact Stack and being able to duplicate. Like we do multiples of the same action, which sounds tedious, but it means that these redirections, or even through your mailing service, you can automatically send them to the thing that they need to see, because nobody wants to see something that isn't relevant to them. And we've had little to no drop off in our subscriptions because of it, which is really, really great. Segmenting outside of the platform is much more of an art and a science. So we, again, you can see we've got 9 different versions of our September appeal in MailChimp, and these have been segmented using the tags that we've got from Impact Stack. So it's really good to know what information you need from the platform, and we have like separated them, so the people who did the last activity, and then obviously take away the social media advocates, which are our social justice warriors and people in Scotland, and all those different things, so that we can really narrow down. And we've gone from about 26% click-through rate, rather than our open rate, we don't really care about the open rate, to 80+% on our click-through rate. So we know that it is working. And also experimenting with first-person narrative, which we've never done before, which works for certain parts of our audience and not for others. That's why we've got like multiple versions of the same email, because we also do third-person narrative, and you have to play around with where you put your buttons and graphics, no graphics. Do people prefer quotes? Do people prefer real people? Do people prefer cartoons? And whereabouts you put the what we call boring information, all the data heavy research stuff. And that's worked really, really well. And that's just an ongoing learning process. So it'd be interesting if any of you were following us, if you received different emails from us. That would be quite fun to know, just to see if you're in different tribes. And so the reactivation, like I said, is still very much a learning process, and it brings up better ways of communicating and better ways of getting information out of Impact Stack. And we keep doing different tagging and different testing within the system and without the system. We have rearranged our whole charity to create audience focused and grow with the public, so that it's more conversational than transactional. Yeah, it does mean that you will have to write more copy, which if you're like me and you are the only person that writes the copy, can be quite daunting. but Impact Stack makes that again really easy with the duplication and the templates. And segmenting your audience properly, like I cannot stress how successful this has been, and it's actually quite easy. Like some of the stuff like our profiling and reimagining is like a really big thing, and our data is all being sifted and combined and joined into one, so we know a full picture of everybody, and that's really big stuff. But like small stuff that you can do to make changes, as Refugee Action was saying as well, like the segmentation that they're doing, and just changing with like asking phone numbers and putting donations on the end of your page, really do make a huge difference. And Impact Stack make that really quick and easy to get those wins. So yeah, that's part of our start of our really big journey to reimagine our whole charity. And the results. So we have had over 3,743 new campaigners, of which 851 of those active campaigners were what we call cold campaigners. So those are people that signed up our hand raiser that I mentioned at the beginning and didn't do anything else again. So we are reactivating those people, and we call them active because they have now taken 2 or more actions since. So they are still with us rather than just taking a further action and then not doing anything. So yeah, we've had a ridiculous increase in people taking MP actions, and it's because we have added more opportunity to be really personalized quite easily on there, and also targeting specific key areas where we know we have a lot of food banks and a lot of campaigners and a lot of interest in what their MP is doing. The taking a target action, before we were getting about 63 people doing it, and that was to the Chancellor, who everybody knows. And the actions we've been taking are to like the DWP or the Yenrik, or people that people don't know, and we've had a massive increase because of the way we explain it and the way that we have targeted those audiences, and the different actions that they can take through the exemptions and segmenting in Impact Stack. One-on-one emails have gone up immensely, which is great, and not great because it's just me answering them. And yeah, it's been really powerful in terms of catching up to what we know the audience would like and what they interact with and what they care about. And I really care about the one-on-one emails because that means I'm getting to hear more about our campaigners and what they care about, and other issues like women's pension and stuff like that that we can actually work on, and then we're like feeding back into our work on what they care about as well, which is so valuable. And it's nowhere near the increase like that we've had in financial supporters over this time, so we're still catching up to them and trying to find out who they are and how we can get them involved in our campaigning online and offline. So it's still a learning journey, but because we've got no physical activities going on like we normally do because of COVID, we can spend more time really digging deep on this audience and insight stuff, which I 100% blame on Jeff and Co at More Onion for their amazing training, for making us kind of reevaluate the way we work. And going forward, we're starting our first integrated action, which will be on Impact Stack and via Mobilize, which is a great software program, where we will be vision-led first, and we will have multiple different channels and ways of asking people to do that, and sharing stories and voices of people across the UK suffering with food insecurity and destitution. And then it will be an action then lead into a fundraiser rather than the usual fundraising spiel that we all do as charities over Christmas. So that's really exciting. And yeah, I hope that wasn't too rambly. I tried making data sound exciting. It's exciting to me. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah May. I think you've got the right audience here for being interested in data, so no problems there. And so interested, my colleague Rebecca posted the same thing, that you use one-to-one emails as a performance metric. I think that's really, really interesting. And interesting to see how strongly that's boosted by people getting more kind of tailored communications. I'm really conscious of time, so we'll maybe just take a couple of questions, and if there are any questions that we haven't had the chance to deal with today, we're very happy to see if we can put people directly in touch with Hannah May for any follow-up. So Lucy, if you'd like to pick out a couple of questions to pass over before we close.
Yeah, we had a couple of questions on segmentation. Ian at London Air Ambulance was asking whether the two surveys were the same. And also Jason at Free Tibet was asking about what system you use to place people into tribes, but I don't know if Jason feels Hannah May, you kind of went on to answer that. But yeah, Ian, feel free to elaborate if not on your question.
So the YouGov survey and our internal survey, which we use Think, so we used an external company to do our internal survey. The 2019 and 2020 were same, the internal survey, and it also contained all of the questions from the YouGov survey, but also contained extra questions about their relationship with us, because we already knew that they'd had some sort of relationship, whether brief or long term, with the Trussell Trust. So we had those extra questions, because obviously the YouGov survey was just the general UK population, that we didn't need to ask them those questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'd just pick up on Jason's point. Sorry, Hannah, this is Ian, but I'm using Jason's question. For any new supporters or new campaigners, how do you then allocate them to a tribe?
Yes, so we now have behavioural algorithms. So usually when somebody first starts, they get put into the early explorers tribe until we know more about them. So that's the automated journey that they go on, and then how they react with that is what pushes them into different tribes. So we have just started with Marketing Cloud, and supporter journeys was my job, but now we're hiring like 6 people in a department to do that instead. So we're still at the early journey of that. So the pre-existing people we've already got set in, but for now, everybody, unless they have done a specific trigger activity, will be put into early explorers. And the only way that they will move out of that is if they have identified as being a food bank volunteer or employee, or if they do a specific campaigning action multiple times. So yeah, that's still a growing process, but definitely look into auto segmentation and the supporter journey work, the impact stack too.
Okay, I know we're short on time, Jess, but I'm also really curious to ask Claire's question about which audiences responded best when you experimented with first person.
Oh, yes. So experimenting in the first person, the people that appreciated that the most were the Good Samaritans, so the people that support us in terms of giving food or time for volunteering, but not necessarily political, because it was like having a conversation with a friend. And also the super doers, who do everything, because they pretty much just like anything that we send to them. So it's not hard. But we also experimented with our social justice warriors doing it that way, and it didn't quite work with them. They kind of they need a mix of first and third person. It's like a really weird, I don't even know what narrative that would be. Yeah, they kind of just need the hard facts and what action needs to be done. So we know that now better, but yeah, mainly our Good Samaritans, which is actually like the largest percentage that we have, and are trying to shepherd them towards one way or the other. But yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah May. I think we're going to have to close there, because I appreciate